I'll just give it a few minutes. It looks like it's loading. Good. And it looks like folks are still coming in. Okay, we are live on YouTube. Great. So for so I will be moderating the chat on YouTube in case there are any questions for later on. And Genny, I wasn't clear. You wanted me to start with the introduction, is that right?
Yeah, just APIC, maybe talk about the festival and
yeah, absolutely.
Whatever you care to say. Yeah.
Okay. Should we get started now, or do you want to give folks a minute or minute or two? Or
yeah, let's let everyone come in. So
okay.
Yeah, if you see them coming in, I can't see them. I just see the numbers. Yeah.
Here, Genny, let me make you co-host again.
Okay. Are people still coming in? Because I just see 27 on the Zoom because they're coming. I don't see the ones on the YouTube.
I don't see anyone on YouTube, but there's still people coming in. Like Nicole just joined right now.
Okay.
Jan Burnham. So let's give it
yeah
until 4:05. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, LiZhen, yes, totally. They can come in at any point. Is that right, Genny? I mean, it's okay with me.
Yeah, sure.
Yay, awesome. YouTube is up. Perfect. One more minute. Okay, it is 4:05 p.m. I see people are still trickling into the Zoom, but we're going to get started with the program. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here this Saturday afternoon. My name is TJ Basa. I'm the Office and Communications Manager with the API Cultural Center. Our mission is to promote and present art that is reflective of the unique experiences of Asians and Pacific Islanders living in the United States. And we are so happy to be hosting this event tonight, the Diaspora Writers Diaspora Writing Workshop Reading. of course, led by Genny Lim. So thank you to all the writers, and thank you especially to Genny for putting this together. We're so excited to have everybody, and thank you to everybody joining us on Zoom and on YouTube. And if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat, as well as on YouTube for anybody who doesn't have access to the Zoom link. We'll be keeping an eye on that as well. For anybody that needs captioning, Zoom does have the capacity for to do automatic captions. You just have to select it under More in your screen on the bottom right side, and you should be good to go. And so before we get started, we always want to make sure that we take a moment to honor the fact that we are currently situated on the ancestral and unceded territory of Yelamu, land of the Ohlone Ramaytush people. And we want to honor and name the stolen indigenous lands that we reside, work, and create on, and recognize the agency of Native peoples who continue to steward the histories and future of these places. And if you would like to do more than listen to this land acknowledgement, you can do so. You can also research the indigenous communities where you are located. I believe most of us here are in the Bay Area. So you can also donate to the Shumi land tax or the Yunakin land tax for anyone who lives in the San Francisco Peninsula. And for anybody outside of the Bay Area, please do, we encourage you to research the indigenous communities where you are located and find other ways to contribute in the movement to return land back to indigenous people. And this event is part of the API Cultural Center's 26th annual United States of Asian America Festival, Reimagining Horizons, where we present over 20 programs reflecting the artistic accomplishments and cultural diversity of San Francisco's AAPI communities. Sorry, did somebody say something? Okay. USAF, as we like to shorten United States of Asian America Festival to USAF. So in case anybody is wondering what's that acronym, USAF showcases artists representing a diverse range of ethnic and cultural groups and aims to heighten the visibility of AAPI artists working in all disciplines, including theater, music, dance, film, literature, visual arts, and more. And our goal is to nurture and empower these groups to be self-sufficient while providing the support that they need to grow. The festival and this exhibition would not be possible without our funders, the San Francisco Grants for the Arts, the San Francisco Arts Commission, the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development, California Arts Council, and the Zeller-Bach Family Foundation. So if anybody is joining us from those organizations, welcome, and thank you for your support. If you enjoyed tonight's program, please consider emailing your city supervisor and urge them to continue supporting and funding AAPI arts and artists. And if you don't live in San Francisco, that's okay. You can still email the District 6 of San Francisco, the District 6 supervisor where APIC is headquartered. And that will help to ensure that we can continue providing these programs in the long term. And with that out of the way, let's get started, and I'll turn it over to Genny. Thanks, Genny.
Thank you, TJ Basa. Thanks for all you do, and thank you to APIC for making this online live stream reading possible and open and free to the public. I'm very proud, and I'm going to just say a few words about Diaspora Writers Workshop. This is the second reading I've done with my online Zoom writing classes. The first happened last week and was quite wonderful, the Memory, Meaning, and Memoir Workshop, where readers shared their stories and poems. It was very poignant and powerful. And this week, this is the Diaspora Writers Workshop. And this workshop has only been meeting for 8 meetings. So what you are hearing from a span of experienced writers to newbie writers will be mostly stories and poems that have been written in the span of these past 8 weeks. Some of them will be maybe reading from earlier works, but all of them have been shared in a communal space. And that's the importance of having these collective workshops, because especially as API writers, we've been in isolation. Our stories have been suppressed for so many years, and we haven't had access to publishing and public readings and all these awards and venues until, I would say, the past 20 years. So these are emerging stories that have been buried for probably generations, and descendants of folks that have had to flee wars in China, Japan, Korea. In fact, we're bringing this to you globally. We have a reader, John, who's in Korea right now, and one is in Taiwan, and one just returned from Taiwan. So it is indeed a diaspora of API writers. And I'm just so proud of what they've been able to do in the past 8 weeks. And I'm going to introduce our first reader, Angela Bao, B-A-U. Angela, it comes from a long lineage with roots in Shanghai region, and she was made in Hong Kong. She has advocated as an educator, a case manager, and she is now working on healing and learning, practicing gratitude and delight, and advocating in other realms. Her passions include making connections, creating and conveying in hula and other forms.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Genny. So I'll be reading 2 pieces, and this is the first one. I hear that my birth into this world was a struggle. Dukkha or suffering is real. Perhaps I was not ready to transition through that first membrane. There are many periods where I feel enmeshed in the viscosity of depression. Is that even its name? Funk, blues, stuck, inertia, no openings, no exit, not even a peephole. Yet I don't do nothing. I flounder in preferred, sometimes numbing activities versus what I can or could be doing. Yet I also limberly emerge and vibrantly emit life cries and vigorously move tender limbs. Is another force manipulating those lively offerings? Or do they exist embedded in the viscosity? How did this viscous mass build up? Was it an organic process? Or the culmination of so much absorption of others' detritus? Or the guaranteed dukkha? Or less than ideal soil amendment? Or is it all a misplaced joke? Is it even something to break free from? Is this blob as inane as toy slime? Is it like Play-Doh versus potter's clay, yet sticky all the same? Perhaps it's a gift and not a constraint, a gift of spaciousness, as if a big foot stepped on the fast-paced playground spinny thing of life, a haven for an introvert to regroup in. Perhaps it's a form of not clinging to productivity, busyness. Perhaps it's an incubation container for new ways of being. I still want to pop it like bubble wrap. I weary of the journey between the 2 spheres. This viscosity lives in a well-crafted private chamber. Over time, fertilizers have appeared that enlarge the opening and diminish the viscous hold. I remember that first breath, the umpteenth umbilical cords that connect me to my human and earth mothers. I'm learning to be kind to it, to smile. When I'm ash, I won't exist again in that original embryonic bubble. After all, this is an inseparable part of me. My second one is entitled For My Niece Lizzie. Remnants of your freed-bound feet, unfurled as ribbons in Chinese dances, scattered, leaving you on bruised footing in a war-torn world, to never see one daughter again, another not for decades, a son imprisoned. Cloth shards propelled your daughters onto multiple foreign shores involuntarily, contorting themselves to fit in, leaving fragments of their hearts behind, creating possible imaginative worlds for others. Tendrils wove themselves through to another generation, drawing your granddaughter to distant lands voluntarily, binding her to vigilance of her soul, guiding alternate sensory navigation for others, animating ancient tales of the Aina. Pieces swirled around your great-granddaughter to bathe others in joy, celebrating them with her balm of crafted strokes. Unfettered chiku, or eating bitterness, perhaps now can disperse with unbound freedom. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next writer. Sally Chang is a second-generation Taiwanese-American queer woman who is an educator in the traditional martial and medical arts of Tai Chi, Qigong, and traditional Chinese medicine. She is a 26th generation Taoist lineage holder of Wudang Longmen Pai and founder of Evergreen Tai Chi Academy, where embodied practice is focused on individual, communal, and relational healing.
Thanks, Angela. Beautiful poems. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. The first poem I'm going to share is called Heart Organ. The heart organ. A humid, meaty rhythm band that endlessly practices no matter what. The viscous quartet is more disciplined than the mind and less fraught. It just gets on with the now and the now and the now with the pace of a small animal. Smells like cut steel and yet feels wholly fluid. Even the intense contraction feels soft, the membrane supple in its warm, firm embrace. Whatever enters, exits. As the valves blink open, gravity pours the fluid currency into the empty cup. A second later, the doors snap shut, and the heart hugs its own center with a thump, kneading its spirit stamp into the moment of exchange before sending the enriched liquid into the feed lines. All the regions are nourished, absorbing what is needed, returning what isn't back into circulation. Up to the top for the next round feels like another chance. Whatever is held is let go. Yet its shape remains and never abandons its station. There is a pattern, but does it make sense? Maybe it doesn't matter. Faith is in the next beat and breath. All right, the next one is called Long Run, and it's in 6 parts. 1, hope has a temporal nature. I hope she tags me with a smile. I hope the sun breaks through the gray. I hope the Katsudan food truck doesn't sell out before I get there. And while I'm at it, I hope I find a good parking spot. A weather balloon blowing dice into the wind. 2, there's a difference between forgetting and never known. Our beautiful island like steam floating above a meal. Yet without a mouth, a face can only ingest humidity, heat, and scent. A luscious echo. 3. The newborn's bath in the ancestral lake never happened. A skip step, some call it a hack, like the white powder replacing mother's milk. Button eyes crossed, rabbit ears scan incessantly for a hint of relief from the knife hovering above a heart stranded, parsed and pressed into a wrinkle rather not remembered. 4. Faith is something I can claim. It's mine to cultivate and verify. Persisting in the dark, tested alone, underwater, weighted by dreams. Tested by glaring injustice, worked by the nuanced edge of acceptance, and tried by daily amplification of the jagged extremes between hope and despair. 5. The elder's hands appeared, humming and grasping tendons to upright collapse, snap rolling strands into threads, oiled with sweat and tenacity, pulling the gut strings long and supple again. Returned to the breathing, ancient instrument, attuned by souls, storm-worthy, unabandoned. 6. Even islands are made of earth. Who alone can claim belonging? Thanks, everybody. I'd like to introduce the next reader, Vickie Chang, my friend with the same last name, the second daughter of Chinese immigrants. Vickie Chang is a healer activist in the AAPI movement and climate justice spaces.
Thank you, Sally. Really enjoyed that. So happy to be here with everybody. This is an excerpt from a piece I wrote a little while ago. Yeah. Life is red, the red of the moon blood that echoes the rhythm of the tides, stopping, starting, coming monthly, some years not at all, confident in her knowing. The red of the matchbox, the sudden tiny spark that comes from the alchemy of X plus Y that starts the journey with no end or beginning. The howl of a newborn emerging from the womb, our first home, the first migration that contains it all. I belong, I feel, I am, see me, hear me, and the long journey home back to the first whale of life from the red mouth of desire. The way that everything bends towards the light. How the sacredness of play, pleasure, rage, and desire have become revolutionary, radical, forbidden, like the name of the dark purple rice I eat with red jujubes and black sesame seeds. We have created an enemy of the untamable current of life, and the loud echo of violence lives within the wild animals we inhabit, that we force into obedience in a culture, a country, a world that worships machines, productivity, doing, mind. We have moved from the simple truth of being, belonging, relationship, each breath, cry, and life to war. The instinct for survival, so deeply planted in all living beings, resting alert in the base of the brain, has been weaponized for a masquerade called life. Buried within us like the terracotta warriors in the ancient capital of Hyon, we are commanded by a motherless dead king come to life across continents, cultures, peoples. The ruthless precision of war, to defend to the death for survival. The elaborate structures, each with their specific purpose, the weapons, the planning, the strategy, the armies. Tracing circles on the soft, rounded belly, the limp cobwebs of the mind clear. The truth spills out, and I walk the red road home. Life is red. The red threads representing the Buddha's robes that adorn the tiny bones of my wrist for nearly a decade. the terror and pain of living in a Taiwanese monastery surrounded by a culture, by people cut off from sensuality, play, desire, separated by lifetimes, dynasties from what makes us human. Duty, responsibility, guilt, shame, the guards of patriarchy dictating nearly every moment, every gesture, all the way back to the Qin dynasty that marked the beginning of the Chinese Empire over 2,000 years ago. The way that work and play were once lovers, one feeding the other, not knowing where one ends and the next begins. Now we are like buzzing drones hovering over life, not quite touching the rich, fertile soil of the earth. The feral kittens who come to teach us how to play, how to learn, who remind us how to be. The tumbling, the rowdiness, hanging off the curtains on the dining hall tables, the temple suddenly a playground, creating havoc, breaking all the rules, meowing in the face of the scolding tiny nun, and everyone laughs, delights, and the wild animal imprisoned inside breathes. Spirituality, culture, life are shaped by the motherless dead king buried within us. The beauty, the power, the freedom of the lineage outside these boxes, outside these rules, the truth that is bigger than all of the ideas, decaying at the moment of birth, destined for death. The months at the monastery remind me, imprint upon me as if for the first time I have forgotten so deeply that I am as sacred as the land holding these tender yellow feet. That I am connected in each moment with the ancestors, the spirits, the deities. The truth knocked into me like the newborn before it takes its first breath, and I remember. The gift from my ancestral lineage that changes everything in the oppression of day-to-day life in the monastery like the legs of a dead, alive tree. So when I leave the lush, tropical countryside by the sea, on a tiny island on this round globe surrounded by fertile darkness, I gasp a deep breath, and another, the fullness of being reunited with the wild inside, untangling all the red threads as I drop the robes from my shoulders and step into the arms of the mother. I no longer serve the dead king. There is a chasm, the width and depth of the Grand Canyon between survival and living. To travel from the red zone of terror, the mechanized warpaths of survival molded and incited by patriarchy, colonization, capitalism, and their children, migration, plague, famine, war, to the breathing red fire of the belly. The beating vastness of the great still heart is the work of a lifetime. The truth is that there's nothing safe about being alive. To seek safety in life is certain death. When I follow the heartbeat of the earth, when the heart is my guru and the body is my temple, the red road takes me places beyond imagination. After all, the mind can only create what it knows. I walk on the earth and she meets me as a lover. The wind caresses my cheek, stroking my hair back from my forehead. The ants tickle my feet and run up my legs, leaving a trail of wonder at all the different shapes of consciousness. The sun celebrates the magnificence of my beauty. I look upon the mountains with the eyes of a mother, full of pride, feeling their solidity inside. The ocean swells in my belly. All the senses are heightened. I can breathe, taste, smell, hear, and touch the earth in symphony. The feeling of arousal echoes the dense, slow, full clouds before a tempest. The earth entreats me to open my legs to her, to allow her to reside in the center of my being. She tells me to live how I want to touch and be touched. Today I speak of violence and of peace. No one naturally silences the life force. We do so in order to survive. To be separated from the false safety of survival that is American, Chinese, ancestral family culture is tantamount to death. And I had to wait until I was ready to die, to live. Thank you. I want to introduce Tasha Essen, who is a multiracial Asian with family roots in Korea, Russia, and China. Tasha was born in Seattle to an immigrant refugee family. She finds healing and connects with her joy through Buddhist chanting and meditation, making odd-looking clay pots, and spending time with her boyfriend and two small, somewhat obedient dogs.
Thank you, Vickie. I'm still sort of just catching my breath from just all the amazing pieces that have been read already. Whew. And I'm very happy to be here and great to see you all. I'm going to read two pieces today. And the first piece I'd like to dedicate to my late parents, Okwan Ko Essen and Alex A. Essen, otherwise known as Arseny Arsenievich Essen. And this first piece is called Cold War Love Story. As a schoolgirl, I stood at attention, hand held at my heart, and pledged allegiance to the flag. Comfortable in the belief that my family was lucky to be in the US. In our homelands, the forces for and against global communism have made war, along with an uneasy peace, for many decades. Millions sacrificed their lives. Others, like my parents, simply severed ties to their ancestral homelands. My father's parents barely escaped their beloved homeland after a Red victory in Russia sent shockwaves across the globe. They lived as stateless persons in China until 3 decades later, when a communist takeover set into motion another tsunami of displacement. My father arrived in the US from China at the age of 17, as McCarthyism swept the country. After fighting the Reds, fleeing the Reds, and surviving poverty, war, and occupation in China, my father's family found themselves in the middle of a Red Scare in the very country where they had sought refuge. In the same year that my father arrived in the US, American soldiers were sent to a faraway land, the Hermit Kingdom, to fight the Reds. Ashes still smoldered in Korea as my mother left behind a country that lay in ruins. Making her way to Seattle, a college student by day, busgirl by night, I can imagine her catching glimpses of movie stars sipping on martinis while she worked at a restaurant perched in the Seattle sky. I smile when I envision her feasting on scavenged spoils of seafood and steak with her college roommate in the early hours of the morning after work. Her American adventure was in full swing. My mother and father met accidentally on a blind date in Seattle. If my father's Korean roommate had not fallen sick and sent my father in his stead, my siblings and I would not exist. My parents shared experiences of Japanese occupation and war, and an appreciation for handmade dumplings. These our family enjoyed in abundance, served with soy sauce and sour cream together. In the land of opportunity, my parents started life anew, still in possession of youthful hope and promise. It was second nature to embrace capitalism and the private ownership of property, like those who came before them. Still, my parents had to forfeit pieces of themselves to find their way in the new world. A name, a language, traditions, friends could be placed on the altar of becoming. These were necessary sacrifices for success, or maybe even survival. At one point, it seemed our family had achieved the American dream: house in the suburbs and summer days splashing in the pool. Then my father lost his aerospace job. I learned at an early age that work was a site of constant struggle, and I memorized a formula. Work equals life in perpetual motion. We moved again across the country, from coast to coast and not neglecting the middle. My parents crisscrossed the country multiple times. The unbridled competition of the American workplace and economy creates a policy of maximum pressure on all but the most privileged. Finally, in retirement, my immigrant parents found a modicum of peace. Looking back on the life of our family, it was perfectly hard and hardly perfect. Now I understand we were the lucky ones. As inequality soars, American streets are not welcoming to the poor. I doubt that newcomers still seek streets paved with gold, liberty and justice for all. Now these ideas seem like nothing more than fanciful thoughts of a young dreamer. So my second piece is called Ghosts. When I was a teenager, our house was visited by spirits. It made me uneasy. I was often afraid. The haunting found power in distance and silence. There were several languages in our home, but still not enough words to say. Unruly ghosts often misbehave. Sometimes there were sudden explosions, fits of anger or rage. These spirits weren't welcome. Nonetheless, they stayed. The ghosts lingered, waiting to expose memories of violence, war, and displacement in disquieting ways. When I learned to quiet the mind, I detected traces of secrets they had saved. There were murmurings about occupation, imprisonment, sexual violence, and old age. I understood in remembering a forgotten war, there was a price to be paid. Sometimes they gently whispered in my ear. Other times they shouted, obviously enraged. Over time, I made their acquaintance and something changed. There were small conversations here and there. We didn't speak the same language, but no matter. Their stories were interesting to share. In storytelling, there is community and words that make it all easier, make all things easier to bear. Thank you. And I'm pleased to announce the next, or introduce the next reader. Melanie Jain, pronoun she, they, is a writer, doer, and Zen Buddhist practitioner based in Oakland, California. Melanie currently organizes Beloved Community Circles, an emerging initiative rooted in the engaged Buddhist practices of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. They work for Code for America, supporting local governments with racial equity and economic mobility efforts.
Good afternoon, dear friends. My name is Melanie Jain. Thank you all for having me today. I'll be reading two pieces. The lie, this body does not belong to me. The status, I reclaim my body, and every moment I still my mind to listen. Put on formless clothes and declare that my curves are just for me, not to titillate or please men, not to perform beauty for others. My body exists in a space beyond anyone's definition of beauty. I reclaim my body when I reject the narrative of body as capitalist machine. Food in, money out, time is money, no time to stop. I stop to celebrate laziness and rest. I refuse notions of productivity. I turn off the clocks and lock away the screens, allowing the sun to call me to breakfast and the moon to sing me to sleep. My body refuses to produce on demand. I reclaim my body when I reject the narrative of not good enough, even when I break out in acne or notice a twist in my spine. I accept the aging of this body, the weariness that has set in, the new aches. I deny the marketing that tells me I must consume or fix myself in order to be loved. I claim my wholeness again and again. In light, I meet the darkness in me without shame. I make space for me to emerge as afraid, fragile, lonely, human. I celebrate my humanness. I reclaim my body each time I pause to feel the cool air on my skin after the rain. Each time I move slowly enough to name my own heartbeat. Each time I slow to wiggle my toes in joy. I investigate my own body as a beautiful mystery. The truth is that I choose to inhabit this wholeness as home. And so this next piece is called Migrating Home. Two geese stir suddenly on the surface of the still lake. Flapping majestic wings, they send ripples in all directions, migrating to territory unknown. Do these geese travel in pairs, or will they meet up with their flock soon? I come alone to see the moss laid out in the forest like a carpet, surfacing many jewels, a red salamander, a spider web, the sparkle of mist on tree bark. I pause at the foot of the forest before a dark stone Buddha, bearing a smile that persists in every season. Seeing her beauty, I connect to aspirations made some years ago before another stone Buddha, out past mulberry trees ready for harvest. There, I vowed to cultivate peace in myself, to heal my relationship with my family, and to discover a vocation which does no harm. I rest by the Buddha's feet beside the lake with the echoes of the migratory geese. I too have been in migration, a light with ripples cast for my thoughts, speech, and actions. I travel alone and yet know the truth of interbeing. I am because my teacher is, and because you are. Soon I will arrive at my final destination, taking formal vows before the beloved community, before the Buddhas. I ask for the great ancestors to bless me with their courage and compassion. At the Buddha's feet, I give myself permission to land, feet solidly on the ground, heart trembling, mind still. I dwell on the vast, unshakable home inside. The light of 10,000 Buddhas illuminates my way. So I'm honored to introduce our next speaker, Chrysalis Hyon. Chrysalis is a second-generation Korean-American elder sapling. She currently serves as an adjunct lecturer and interim director of the Center for Writing and Scholarship at the California Institute of Integral Studies. As a private coach, Chrysalis enjoys an experiential, integral approach to support those in life transitions or with academic writing.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for those beautiful 2 pieces. Okay, I have 1 piece for today, and it's called Reflections of a Banana. Banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. Example 1. Parents didn't speak to us in their native tongue while I was growing up. Even though mother, who did not go beyond the 7th grade in Korea, was not fluent in English, but especially because father, who had managed to obtain a PhD and an MBA here, feared that we children would still speak broken English like them. Example 2. As a child, I did not want to know anything about Korea. I mirrored the ignorance of my young white schoolmates in the small provincial steel mill town where I grew up. When it came to taking in anything about my parents' motherland, I metaphorically put my hands over ears, except for the foods we ate, clearly from elsewhere, that held an instinctual and natural place in my childhood. However, I was not eager to show these foods to my childhood best friend, Nancy Murphy. I recall my sudden chagrin just before the first time Nancy came over for dinner, when I noticed how much the brown spicy bean paste that we ate with the lettuce, called doenjang, literally looked like mixed dung. When Nancy sat down at our dinner table, I quickly covered over the doenjang. Example 3. In my own attempts to create some space between me and my family's dark sides, the unpleasant parts, I had chosen the major of philosophy in college. Philosophy offered a pristine, neutral space to engage in lofty and abstract thought. Philosophical discourse served as the boulders I could use to sharpen the mental swords of my pre-adult self's mind. But more importantly, it provided a landscape escape from all those unresolved rifts and gaping holes left open by my family's darkness. For example, my oldest brother's haunting disappearance into an extreme religious cult when I was around 16, which ensued all throughout my college years. As I reflect upon the unceasing inner contradictions within me, banana comes up again and again. Starting with that first chosen marriage to Western philosophy, and even until now, whenever I engage white men's discourse, there is a 2-track experience going on. In my second affair after philosophy, it was with Jungian psychology. In grad school, I loved learning about certain concepts coined by Carl Jung: synchronicity, archetypes, psyche, and soul. And yet, at the same time, there is another part listening, silently pissed. Jung would say, we are all here to individuate. This other part felt grumpy and peeved by such theories. What the hell does individuation apply about my people, about the collectivist way of life? With white male scholarship, it's all about making universal statements. Whether it's grand theory or objective science, there is a way of speaking as if white males' thought forms do not come from a particular region or any specific part of the world. Somehow, it seems to be their unique ability to speak as a voice from nowhere And from that space, they pontificate. We need only listen, and we will have access to the greatest truth, to the most objective, most moral, most grand plane of reality. Could that be the reason a disproportionately large share of wealth and natural resources have been under the auspices of white people's nations? That even though the majority of people on the globe are not white, yet somehow a quantitative minority of white-skinned persons monopolize or materially control both the man-made and natural wealth of this planet? The ancient creature part within me is rumbling inside. She needs to continue to peer closely at this situation. The modern intellectual in me sees her own contradictions around race. Banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. There is still more to learn here. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the next reader, who is actually my fellow Korean in this group, John Lee. John Lee is blessed to have participated in the writing group to explore some of the themes of diaspora, power, love, and identity. He is a second-generation Korean American father, convert Buddhist, and native of California.
Thank you, Chrysalis. And I realized I said native, but I'm not really a native anywhere. So native is a relative sense. I thought it might be nice to just take a couple breaths to pause. Still processing your lovely poem, Chrysalis. I just wanted to read something, just one poem. It's some memories I have of growing up and my parents. One of the things that this writing helped me with is to kind of take different perspectives and understanding my parents. And so I wanted to share some memories that I had of them. So it goes like this. In the afternoons, my father would pick me up from high school on his way home to nap before another round of work. Worn out from months of work without a day off, he'd try, "How's your day?" I'd say, "Good." "How's the test?" I'd say, "Went well, A minus." "How was tennis?" "Okay, I lost." "It's okay," he said. "Suga 했어. You tried." At night, after she finished bookkeeping for the day, my mother would prepare the daily specials for the shop. Wednesday was lasagna. So on Tuesdays, she would build it from scratch, layer by layer. Noodles, sauce, beef, cheese. Sometimes I take a break from homework and help her spread the mozzarella or spread the sauce. 감사합니다, 수고했어. Thank you for your help. On the weekends, my father would build furniture for the house. He would make cabinets, tables, chairs on Saturdays and Sundays before going to work. Sometimes I'd go out and help him. And as he worked, his mind would be far away crafting the designs and far away from his long days running the store. Every once in a while, he would stop and he would ask me for help. "Could you help me hold these pieces of wood together?" "Yes." "잘했어. Thank you. 수고했어." After leaving the house, I'd come to visit more and more often as they get older. I hear that when you're in your 40s and 50s, that's the time when your parents will pass away. Over Christmas, I visited my parents to help plan their passing. We talked about what would happen if they fell ill, or if one of them would pass, or what would happen if they both passed. They didn't want to be a burden to their children. After my mother made us dinner and we sat in silence, eating the rice, kimchi, fish, and soup. 잘했어, 수고했어. You carried many burdens well. I'm very pleased and happy to introduce our next speaker. Tiff is a queer, non-binary 1.5 generation Taiwanese American. They identify as community weaver, kinesthetic performance artist, Basu, Chinese astrology practitioner, and cosmic hype person to support collective healing and liberation. I'll turn it over to Tiff.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This piece is called Mother's Tears. My mom used to tell us stories of how she had lifted heavy boxes during her first pregnancy, which was also her first year of marriage, her first year in America, her first year in business with my father, her first year doing business ever. How she swore she would never live in a place like New York City. How since then, she reminds me, never say never. You never know what life may bring you. With her big belly out, lifting boxes of merchandise up and down, shipments of fashion jewelry and hair accessories that came from Taiwan, sourced from China, assembled and packaged to be sold in flea markets in Queens, New York. Neighbors would ask her, "Is that man abusing you? Is he forcing you to do labor?" Which she would reply, surprised at that question, "No, he is my husband." I'm not sure whether to be proud or upset when I hear this part of her story. I see my mother as a proud woman who stands by the belief that strength is measured by how much pain you can endure. To 吃苦, eat bitter, is a rite of passage. So silence looks like holding back complaint. Means, I'm okay, I don't need anything, in a nod. Means, not having access to any personal desires. Means, having the goal and outcome of the collective is prioritized over individual needs. Unless that need, of course, is that of my father's. I saw my father through her stories from the lens of entrepreneur. He was the one who said, "Let's go to America." 2 suitcases in hand with a daring dream. Let's see what we can do and how far we can go. My father, born in the year of Yang Fire Monkey, the first son of the Lin family, 4 older sisters, makes him the first one to dote upon and put all of the savings towards. The first to graduate with a business degree. He met my mother, and marriage, business, and children forever changed the course of his life. My mother, born in the year of Yin Earth Pig, a very well-reputed piano teacher, lived only a block away from Ama's house in Taipei. Ama, the great matriarch, said firmly to my papa, "You are 30 years old. You need to stop fooling around. Commit to something." Mary Hualong, she comes from a good family. You can see in her hands and hear in her voice, she's got a good soul. My mother is a beautiful singer, middle child, just like me. She used to sing us Chinese and English songs, beautiful melodies for all 3 of us to hear tucked in bed at night. My older sister was named Melody, and she too grew up with a beautiful voice that would sing melodies to help accompany my mother whenever she was feeling blue. The first years were hard. For 16 months after Melody in Queens, she had me in Taiwan. And 13 months after me, she had my brother back in Queens. We were reunited as a family when I turned 3. My mother shifted the story from carrying those heavy boxes to now driving my father to and from the airport in silence and anxiety. The first time she ever drove alone was driving back from JFK Airport, going so slowly, holding in her bladder for nearly 2 hours, completely lost and rerouted, trying to find her way back home. Papa would be gone most of our childhood, being the bridge of international trade as China was opening up. We would come later to find committing to family is intricately linked to committing to the first baby, the business. We would move into a bigger home. We all would have separate rooms, and Mama would stop singing. My Chinese name given was LiZhen, Yu meaning rain. Mama would tell me it would rain a lot when she was pregnant with me. I imagined her big belly full, singing to her favorite band, the Carpenters, while looking out, catching the zigzagging race of individual teardrops cascading down the window. What I've got, they used to call the blues. Nothing is really wrong. Feeling like I don't belong. Walking around some kind of lonely clown. Rainy days and Mondays always get me down. Listening to the pitter-patter of rain echoing the pitter-patter of her beating heart. Life wasn't easy to have to remain so solid and enduring, carrying boxes, pregnancy after pregnancy, to being so far away from home, ancestral lands, family, language, the comfort of the piano to be replaced by the cold, harsh winds and the bleak days of East Coast rain. She would tell me later she regretted giving me my birth name, LiZhen, because when I was born, I would cry. I would cry a lot. Big fat tears streaming down my cheeks, waiting for attention, waiting to be noticed, waiting for affection. Perhaps I've inherited my mother's grief and longing. I wonder if I had listened and felt her pain, incubating in the deep abyss of her womb and her tender heart. If I had heard and have always felt connected to my mother's soft whispers, the ones she would never dare utter out loud. I long to be seen, to be noticed, to be held. My needs are not a burden. It is okay to rest, to cry, to yell in frustration. It is okay to want what I want in this life. It is okay to want you here with me now. It is okay to be needy. It is okay to ask for help because I am worthy. I hold these longings as unexpressed truth in my bones. And as I let my mother's tears flow through my own face, I release these stories. I release the silence. I release the burden. I release all of the things that could have been and all of the things that are. And within this telling between time and space, I vow to create a new story for us all. One of voice and wild expression. One where chiku, eating bitter, isn't done and faced alone. One where resilience can be built and steepened by community care. One of laughter and many days of melody, and one of facing the rain, where crying can be done in celebration for letting the past go and having the courage to move on. Thank you. It is my greatest pleasure and honor to introduce our next speaker, my beloved, my best friend, my partner, Sapho. Sapho goes by they, them, is a descendant of immigrants from Zambales and Iloilo in the so-called Philippines. They come from a lineage of farmers, weavers, teachers, and healers. They live on Ohlone land where they practice East Asian medicine.
Hi, everyone. I'm still feeling that last piece, Tiff. Thank you. Oh, okay. I have two short pieces to share. The first one is a letter that I started writing to my paternal grandfather. And I'd like to preface that this letter will probably never be finished and it will continue to evolve because I found that writing this has really helped me to heal and to move through unseen, unknown grief. So I think I'll be adding and editing as my process continues, but this is how it reads today. Dear Lolo Jose, I never got to meet you. You only live in stories. Stories that say you were blind and carved toys out of bamboo. and worked very hard on the rice fields. All I heard growing up was that you died when Papa was only 2 years old. You lost the 2 sons before him. Bonifacio died from sudden illness, and Federico was wounded by Ebola and died from infection. They both left this earth young. The village witch doctor said it was a curse. After losing them, you were scared to come close to my father. You never got to hold him because this curse forbid you, or else you would lose him too. It was either you or him. Just this past year, Papa told me this story in Hiligaynon. I can barely understand your language, but can feel the sadness it carries. Sangkin munag ako, hindi siya kaparapit kat nagahapang sa akon, kay nahadlok siya nang mapatay ako. When I was born, he didn't want to come close to me because he feared I would die. Gani hindi siya kapalapit sa akon, so he never came close to me. Never niya ako ginabitbit. He never picked me up. Even though you two were never close, I know you loved him. He survived you after all. I feel the longing to be close to my dad, maybe in the same ways he wanted to be close to you. I'm convinced my tears are ancient beings that live inside my body and swell up when we don't give them space to be free. Stories like this give life to wounds that can finally breathe and no longer haunt. And my second piece is more like a prayer. Body equals land equals diaspora. Where do we go from here? Keep reaching what we know, what we don't know, what will never be revealed. Keep seeking the places where the light can't reach, where the forgotten stories live, hidden beneath pain. Keep grieving for those who could not cry, for our descendants, so they overflow with love. Keep dancing and praying to remember who we are. This land, this body is the bridge where we transform the wounds of the past. There is space for us here. There's space, there's space. We are the earth, ritual lives in us. Thank you so much for listening. I'm really excited to introduce our next and last reader, LiZhen Wang. They are an astrologer and a mother-loving daughter. Their matrilineal lineage is from Wang, a small island off of Taiwan, and their paternal side is from Taipei and Anhui, China. Some of LiZhen's favorite things include climbing trees, splashing in the ocean, and singing prayers.
Thank you, Sapho. Whew, wow, so powerful. This is my first ever live reading and I'm enjoying it so much. Okay, so I will read my piece. I wrote this 1 month ago to the date, so you'll see. It's called April 6, 2023. The first day of the last month. Today, on the first day of her last month, my mother cries in the face of everyone. It begins with her oncologist, Dr. Zhou. He calls her by her Mandarin name, Liang Cho, which translates to cool autumn. Liang Cho, he says, the cancer has spread into your bone marrow and blood. And this means that the cancer is now circulating through every part of her body. It is more a part of her than not. Dr. Zhou says, the average patient in your condition has 1 month to live. At this, cool autumn loses her cool. Her face crumbles in the predictable way I have watched for 30 years now, starting with the time she pulled me into the living room when I was 8 years old, slammed the door behind me, and tried to tell me something. But the moment she opened her mouth, her face crumbled and emitted a long wail. It was my first introduction in what would become frequent episodes. In those days, my mother felt more like a maddening housemate than a mother. Or she felt like the child while I was the mother. For years now, she's accidentally called me Ma, which means mom, when she means to say May, which means young girl. Now my mother child scrunches her eyes tightly. The skin between her eyebrows bunch in thick folds, like the surface membrane of soy milk, contracting in fear of being consumed into a vast void. My mother is quiet, silently streaming tears, a cacophony of inner noise protesting the end of her life. She fumbles for her phone and taps weakly at the black screen, willing it to come back to life. I know that my mother, at the end of her life, will of course be childlike. More than ever, she will wail. She will alternate between reticent and rageful. She will need to be held as she loses control, emotionally and physically. Next, we take her to yoga class. My father asks if she really wants to go still. It's doctor's orders, she barks. This is a lie. All three of us, my mother, father, and me, know the doctors have said no such thing. But my entire life, my mom has been a liar. To this day, I don't know how much of what she tells me is true. Is it 95% true, 50%, or measly 10% true? My mother lies because it's the easiest way out. I realize this is what children do. And suddenly I realize a certain part of her never matured beyond the age when, like all children, lying was the quickest and easiest path to getting what she wants. But it's also the most destructive. And I have learned in this relationship, there is nothing that cannot be repaired in the long arc of time and forgiveness. So I stay by her side, loop her arm through mine, grip her hand, and guide her into the yoga studio. Master Sujit rounds the corner just as I ease her butt onto the waiting bench. I am kneeling, removing her left shoe, then the right, when Master Sujit asks her with a bright smile, "How are you today?" Cool Autumn's face melts again, a decomposing slump of features. She just received difficult news, I tell him as she cries and sniffles. Master Sujit has us lie down on yoga mats as he leads us into Yoga Nidra meditation. Immediately, Cool Autumn calls out, "I can't understand." And I translate from English to Mandarin like I did when I was 8, 12, 23, 38, and on. But this time, the words I translate are soft ocean waves lapping at her consciousness and mine. Master Sujit says to listen to the vibration of his words. It does not matter if you don't understand, he says, simply receive the vibrations. And I do. The gentle sway of his voice is a pillar of support. What a relief to let others wrap my mother in their care. My mother in their care. Breaking up my days with her. I know I've been an A+ daughter, but the truth is, despite her childlike tantrums, my mother is easy to love. She's generous, she's kind, she's strong, so strong, which also means she's not afraid to be a fool. There's a tenderness that blooms in my chest each time I slide a sweater over her thin arms, lift her body up from bed, and tug underwear over her butt. The mother is primordial. She is the life that created mine, the first person I ever met, and one of the more difficult people in my life. The road to falling in love with her has been arduous, unexpected, and a gift. In loving her, I have received love into my life. And long after she's gone, this love will keep guiding me into so many other loves, some of whom I've yet to even meet. Like my own children, someday, if I'm lucky. In this, there is no separation between loving and being loved. In this, she will be with me long after her body is gone. And in this, my children will have a living grandmother. The meditation comes to a close. Master Sujit says to feel the light of the sun and the stars shining on our bodies. But what I hear in the vibration of his word is the vibration of the world. I feel my pulse humming against the subtle vibrations of the floor beneath. I can feel it without the usual distraction of my chattering mind in the background. All I feel is sensation and the clarity of breath. And suddenly it is clear, dazzling and luminously clear, that this body is not the beginning or end of me. It's home. It's a magnificently sensing instrument, but it's not my life. It's the cup which allows life itself to pour in and out of me, like when my mother birthed me. Like now as I give her my life, as I walk her down the final corridor of her body. This body allows the sun to stream into me, vegetables to nourish and root me to place. It lets in the sounds of the city, the cars honking, vendors hawking, trucks thundering. The sounds of so many souls with their humming, crying, wondering, learning, living, dying, awakening, nestled right against me. The vibrations of so many of us cycling into each other endlessly. Whether or not we try to, we can't help but give each other life. This is our nature. I raise myself up from the floor. I scoot over to my mother, whose arms and legs are flailing with the effort to sit up. She can no longer do it herself. So I scoop one hand under her armpit while another braces her shoulder. I upright my mother child, and she gushes, "Thank you, Master Sujith." And suddenly, cool autumn is crying all over again. My mother is a crybaby, and so am I. We are quick to feel, and we are quick to heal. I still have one hand gripping her shoulder when Master Sujith pulls my mother into his arms. They embrace for a long minute, and when Master Sujith pulls back, I see he is crying too. With alarming clarity, I see that the mother child I felt burdened by since childhood is a gift to this world. She makes Master Sujith feel. She makes Dr. Zhou feel. In a short span of time, they are moved to tears by her tears. She has the childlike ability to coax love out of even the tightest hands. I will hurt so desperately when my mother's body stops pulsing. And so I take my mother child into my arms now. I hold this gift from the earth, and I will return her to the earth when she dies. She will return her breath to the wind, her blood to the water, her bones to the soil. And long, long after, she will still be here, woven as she is through me and through everything and everyone I touch, and everything and everyone they touch, and on and on. And so she is, we are, woven inextricably and unendingly together into every fiber of this whirling planet and solar system and galaxy, and on and on and. Thanks, everybody. There's a sister in the background.
Wow. Oh my God. It's what a way to end. Perfect. TJ, are you still here? We have about 10 minutes for Q&A, and would like to invite any of you in the audience, in the live stream, if you'd care to ask any questions or make any comments or have any thoughts about this reading, everyone will greatly appreciate it. I can't see everyone on my iPad, but just let me look in the chat and see if there's anybody there. Anyway, to prevent any empty airspace, I'm going to ask let me start with, we do have someone. I'm going to ask maybe LiZhen, because you had sent me that piece prior to reading. How did you craft it? It was so wonderfully put together, so skillfully, and the metaphors, and she could coax tears out of the tightest hands. I mean, it's just so amazing. So we'll start, maybe you can talk a little about the process. And you said you wrote this on April 6th. Suddenly that date reminds me if that was the day I got married. But go ahead, at least then.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, April 6th, I guess a month ago. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I describe and sort of laugh at my mom crying all day just because it's kind of funny and cute. But I kind of cried all day too, you know, not as, she's much more demonstrative and out with her feelings than even I am. And so after we finished the yoga class, I had a little bit of time to myself. And I just wanted to jot down some of the experiences of the day. And I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but I always found writing very difficult until being in Jenny's class, actually. And a friend of mine, Rona, told me about this app, which I now use all the time, the most dangerous writing.
Oh,
did I lose?
We're losing her sound. So anyway, I think we're going to have to jump to someone else who would like to comment. Your piece, Chrysalis, is distinctly like in an essay form, which is a little different than the form, the more poetic forms that the others have taken. But it was so powerful, the statement you made. I'm like seeing you're in academia in an important role as a chair. And is this something that you could ever share with your colleagues, or how does this piece fit in the whole scheme of things for you, speaking out so courageously and so boldly about power and white power?
Danni, you just like, pooh. Here I am at my school doing this reading. Yeah, I did have that thought. I know, and the contradictions continue. I don't know. I know that I'm so grateful that we have this space to start, right? Like we just get to start here. And I was just writing a text to the audience that people who are listening, if you're inspired by today, please know that we're going to continue. And we would love to have more people, new people who want to join us. But yeah, I don't really even know yet. I just know that I knew that this space would be the space for me to get to say these things. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I do feel like I'm in a context that is supportive. You know, I think my school has, like every school has its shadow sides and its issues, but definitely compared to like traditional academia, it's a little more, I do feel like, yeah, it would definitely be, there's spaces I could read it here, maybe. Not maybe, I
I'm
could.
glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's just more about, yeah, it's like you're saying, I think we're all having a process around our relationship to our writing. So.
Well, I think you all knocked it out of the ballpark, and I wanted to, yeah, everyone was so beautiful. Tiff, you really blew me away, because usually you have real short pieces that you share in our workshop meetings. And this one was a longer piece, and it was just like, caught me by surprise. I was expecting a short. You have these really wonderful, charming pieces, and this one was really powerful. I know it was very personal. How did it feel to share?
Wow, I spent a good deal of yesterday. Actually, no, I spent maybe 30 minutes writing it all down. I think reading it out loud, it brings me a lot up. Of course, I always like time after time, every prompt that you've given us, Genny, I would, after reading it, I would have like these little quivers and shakes because it's just a lot of energy that's moving out through me. But yeah, I was especially grateful for this opportunity to dive into my mother's story. And I know in the past, when I would tell her, I'm like, you've lived such an incredible life, she would joke like, yeah, someone should write my story. And so I feel like yesterday was the first time I like took a stab at it, and it felt really good.
And Sapho, similarly, your story it was like a tribute, a love poem to your father. It's beautiful. And I loved hearing the native tongue. It meant so much to hear a non-English, voice.
Yeah, I think after writing this and reciting it actually out loud, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable speaking my ancestors' language. So it's like really inspiring me to keep learning. So thanks for witnessing that.
Well, I think it permeates through you because when I hear your voice, there's this tenderness, a softness that is very musical and soothing. And I think that's something that you really inherited, from your father and your grandfather and on. So it's something very precious, and so glad you're cultivating it through your writing. The spirituality seems to come up a lot in this group. And from Melanie's piece, that was so powerful. You're embracing of the darkness in you, but not having to change. How did that come from you? What was your transformative vehicle? I know it's the Buddhism, but to actually come to such a truth, a self-truth.
The first poem that I recited about the lie that my body doesn't belong to me was inspired by hearing Samina's recitation of her poem during our writing workshop. I really appreciated how direct it was, the lie, the status, the truth. And for me, that brought up a lot of debris from past experiences. And so I think there's just some spark that came to me of like, oh, this body is mine. I can, how do I reclaim it? And that was the exploration, the first piece. Yeah, I think that spirituality, Buddhism helps me to slow down and be more present in the moment. And when I'm able to slow down, that's when I'm able to notice things that are beautiful or difficult in me that I can't see when I'm moving so quickly.
Wow. Yeah, and John, you're still at a monastery, and you wrote that beautiful piece that was so poignant. How is it you're embracing the worldly in this very spiritual environment? Did that help the writing of that piece?
Yeah, and Jenny's a very astute observer. And I remember I was in Korea last month, and Jenny's like, "Why aren't you writing something about Korea?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I realized I haven't sort of wrapped my head around everything, and so I'm back. But there's very distinct Korean things that we talk about. Like I was talking about the idea of suko, so burden, or it's weird because suko is translated as merit or burden or good job or thank you, and it's weird how all those concepts come together. And then also here, there's this idea of true self and chungang, and there's these interesting, very unique Korean Buddhist notions that I'm exploring. So, Jenny, I don't have answers, but it's really nice to be in this space and explore these things with this group.
Yeah. Sally, our resident Qigong and master. Yeah, your pieces are so stunning and spare. How does that come together for you to write your poetry in such a spare and deep, profound way? Like we almost have to hear it again because it's embedded with so much meaning. I really wanted to. You wish that I could have sat with it. What is your process?
Thanks for the question. I really have to credit you, Genny, because both of those poems came from your prompts on the heart chamber, meditation on the heart chamber, and then a meditation on or an inquiry into hope were the two prompts for those two poems. So I think one of the things this group has stimulated was I appreciated when you would tell us the prompt at the end of the class. And because I was already kind of in the writing, listening zone, I would usually write right after class in response to your prompt. And that's how those two poems came about. And I think just through having a long time practice of meditation and martial arts and movie meditation, and having some skill or training in medicine, I take both a visceral and a pretty somatic approach to meditation.
You're also very disciplined. I mean, you write right away. A lot of the people in my other workshops said, oh, I had to write it just before the Zoom meeting so I could have something to read. You're good.
Yeah, there's so many different processes.
Yeah, but you're also keenly observant, and that comes through in your writing. And even in your comments of everyone's work, you're a really good listener. You can tell. I'm going to end with Vickie. Don't disappear. Vickie, where are you? Where is she? Hey, Vickie. She disappeared.
My computer's about to die any second.
Oh, no. Can you? Yeah, you had an epic piece and wanted you to talk about your journey and how that is expressed in that piece.
Well, I have no idea what to say to that. I'm really inspired by nature, and when the inspiration comes, it comes, and I'm grateful for it. I think that's all I can say.
But there's so much feminist ideas and self-determination and historical oppression of Chinese and misogyny. There's everything in there. So it's not just nature that we're hearing. We're hearing an epic, chronicling of historical oppression, patriarchy.
Well, I guess my experience of it is that it is nature in the sense that the body is nature. And I feel like the more I feel into the earth of the body and let it speak to me, like all of that comes from there. You know, recently I took a year of classes about the history of China, and I felt like so much of what I heard, I already knew in my body. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's true. We're all vessels. Everything we know, we knew when we were born. I mean, the real knowledge, the real wisdom. And I think that's a perfect way to end. We're all trying to climb back to that womb and restore ourselves to nature. Beautiful. Everybody. Yeah, that was so awesome. Such beautiful writing. we're out of time. It's 5:35. Thank you, TJ. Are you still there? We're gonna sign off.
Yes, I am. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
That was so
Thank you, TJ.
powerful.
There is
And-
this one. There is one question from Nicole, Jenny, if you want to.
Okay. Oh,
She says,
okay.
I would love to know more about this writing class. Will it be continuing in any form?
Yes, in fact, we're trying to get a consensus about when is a good start time, because folks, as you know, are far flung right now, and in the summer people are doing things. So it sounds like it'd probably be more the latter part of the summer or the fall at this point. So we will announce it through AAPI website, okay? So we'd love to have newcomers, and if you think you have a place here, yeah, please join us. Thank you. Love to all, and go Warriors. I gotta, dude.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Love
Thank
you.
you,
That was so
Jenny.
awesome.
Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
It's
you.